The next question is from Ananda Mai. Dear Sat Shree, I'm wondering how I can discern between truly feeling and experiencing darkness or negative patterns and transforming them, versus going down the rabbit hole and staying stuck in the negativity. And if a negative pattern repeats again and again, do I need to reject or restrain it? How do I know I'm not just avoiding it? From my own experience with grief, I know that I had to go fully into that seemingly bottomless darkness before it could be transformed. I couldn't have done this alone. I needed the help of others, professional awakened healers, and it was much too dark to it by myself. Before that, I have avoided feeling the grief for many years, but it was keeping me stuck with it in the subconscious and holding me back. I'm asking this because I have some friends dealing with darkness or negative patterns, and I sometimes feel quite helpless in discerning how to help them.
All right. So, a rich question. The nature of when to meet the arising darkness and when to hold back or to reject it altogether has to do with the readiness of your system. Because it is true that we can enter into the battle, but with not enough strength to come out of it. So this Abhimanyu, who is Arjuna's son, the analogy of having the confidence of going in and meeting the darkness, but not having the strength to actually pull back from when the darkness actually starts getting moved. So there are a number of factors in determining when to do that. One of the first one is your own experience. I mean, obviously what happened with the grief is you took it all, you entered I don't know how much choice you had about going into the grief, but you found yourself not able to come back out. So that was your first main meal of elephant. That was where you got familiar with what it means to be in the true work, and you weren't prepared. It was a full-blown battle. And you bringing in the support that was available to you was useful and helpful, because in those moments, we have to reach out for something that's in us, but we can't access it without someone else's light, clarity, guidance, or whatever, to give the part of us that's lost in it a pathway to recover its authority over the issue. So our work with Mariana had a lot to do with trauma, and it had a lot to do with triation, where you step in and step out of the darkness, testing your ability to hold to the truth of what you were. And you had to do that by resourcing something true and positive that would be available to you when you were right there on the threshold of the darkness that was arising, so that it could let you know, okay, I'm not sure I have the strength, and you would be able to pull back by tapping into that resource. It could be your relationship with me. It could be an image of something that brought you happiness in the course of your life. So that there's this process of testing yourself and determining how far you can go. But at the same time, the purpose would be to ultimately meet it. Now, because of your relationship with me, if you can just keep thinking Sat Shree, then even when you're in the darkness, by even just the name, you can bring in this greater resource while you're being overtaken by the darkness. But if a person doesn't have this kind of connection to an enlightened teacher, it's not available to them. They have to do this triation. They have to learn when it's coming up and it's about ready to overtake them, and then resourcing themselves to be able to step back from the threshold of where they're going, so that they don't keep feeding it. Because once the pain body comes up, once the trauma comes up, the mind goes into its story about it. So one of the first things a person has to do is stop believing the story, stop following the story. If they can stop following the story, then they can get some authority over themselves in the present moment while they're being overtaken. This is why, in my experience, that less people have a basis in their own quiet silence and stillness, they really shouldn't go into the territory of their darkness. They should reject it or get help for it until they can get to a place where they could perhaps meditate and develop their own inner silence and stillness. Because it's this silence and stillness, this presence we have when the mind quiets and we become still, that allows us to dive into the darkness. Now, mind you, this is established in you. So you actually have the ability to enter into territories you wouldn't imagine you could enter into. But also because of your relationship, now the darkness becomes the means by which you're manifesting the incarnation in your life, this incarnation force in your life. And it takes over how long it goes on. It will shorten the amount of time and bring you more awareness during that amount of time. And as time goes on, when these cycles tend to repeat themselves, it'll be less time, less dark, more presence, more ability of recognizing until it dissipates enough. It will always be part of you, but it will no longer have the authority over you as before. And the other thing to know about the darkness is they follow the cycles of the gunas. So when you are in a vulnerable spot in your transition between tamas and sattva and rajas and tamas, you are more susceptible or not in terms of these things arising. In addition, you have circumstances that may be arising that could be triggering the pattern within yourself. So we can't know exactly how should we reject it or step back from it. You have to follow your own intuition, and you have to become skillful. This is like learning to ride the waves of the gunas, like body surfing. You learn to catch it just right, and then that can take you to the place that can be the most effective action for what is arising. So there you have it. That's it. I mean, it's a good part of the work for most of us, and many of us have repetitive trauma, pain patterns that rise up that we truly believe are real, and when they come and take us over, because that's what happens. When that veil of the guna comes up, we believe this is the reality, not the normal reality or other higher realities. We become the trauma. We become the reenactment of the consciousness of when the trauma occurred. So learning how to gain authority over that is first discover the inner silence and stillness, the quieting of the mental process and its story making that feeds it. Second is to meet the trauma in its embodied form, in its how it's manifesting without a label, without a story in your body. Those two strengthen our ability to continue this process of self-healing. And this is how we align ourselves. The battlefield will be here as long as we have bodies. So learning to catch that this is what's going on, and that the only being that's going to make the difference first is you. Second is whatever resource you can tap into that can allow you to have enhance your strength to be present with those things when they come. Then you'll know. Then you'll know when to take action and when not to take action. All right, very good. Thank you. No.
I wonder if there is something that you can say about, because she says in her questions that I have some friends dealing with darkness or negative patterns, and I sometimes feel quite helpless in discerning how to help them. So her presence in, holding space for
it's
others.
clearly we heal others automatically when we have developed sufficient presence. That means your empathy for their suffering is itself, if it's not misplaced, that means if it's not activating your own fear of that same structure, but it's really there for them to empower them to be with what's arising, it will have the effect that will strengthen their own ability to be with the process they have to go through. If they're not spiritually awake, they're going to have to use the normal psychological, psychic, healing arts guidance and guidance that's available to people who are not yet awake. But you can always feel free to share what you did, your own experience, even if they're not going to be able to do what you can now do. But I would initially never advise someone to try to enter into the trauma consciously unless they had the authority of their awakened consciousness. And if they don't have that, then just compassion. Compassion is not empathy, by the way. Empathy is you're feeling what they're feeling because there's actually a match. Compassion is the presence, recognizing the quality of suffering that the person is in. So compassion doesn't get vested. It doesn't think, I need to do something to help them. So stepping back from the misplaced compassion and to be compassionate allows your presence to be bigger than your own because you're getting out of the way. So that's how I would address that one. And you know that one well.